Okay, meeting will come to order on this, I was gonna say Monday, but actually it's Thursday, February 12th. Before we get to the crux of the meeting, I just want to say, I think we've had a tremendous winter, and it still continues, and I just want to thank the fire department, the police department, really doing a great job. Highway Surveyor Chris Foley, our roads compared to other towns is always a lot better. But I really want to thank the police and fire for doing a great job, making sure that our residents are fine. Also, it's nice to see a lot of stories about neighbors helping out neighbors, especially elderly, the disabled, and that's the most important. And I think we'll probably have a few more storms coming up. So I just want to say, as I spoke to the police chief many times, if anybody at home needs help or is going to anticipate something, call the police department, talk to the chief, both chiefs, and they'll certainly do whatever they can to help you. But the cooperation and the friendliness and the just watching over everyone has just been very gratifying. And on behalf of the board, we certainly thank everybody and certainly thank the both chiefs for doing a great job. So with that, signing of the warrant.
I'll
Motion
move.
by Brian.
Second.
Seconded by Bill. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Approval of minutes, January 12th.
I'll move.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Bill. Discussion? Okay, unanimous. Invitation to speak? Okay. Our first public hearing, Attorney Antonellis and Joe, want to come up, please? We have two metals doing business as 89 Centrale Trattoria and Bar, and the manager is Michael Montecalvo, represented by Joe Antonellis. This is for a alteration of licensed premises. They're doing some renovations to the bar and also the dining room. And I believe they've gone to the planning board, and there was a site waive planning approved on 12/9/14. Everything else is and with that, this is a wonderful restaurant on Main Street, and that's great for the town. And tremendous. Every night it's almost full. So it's nice that you see they're going to add on, and it's exciting. And with that, I'll turn it over to Attorney Antonellis.
Thank you. Joe Antonellis for the applicant, Michael Montecalvo, who is the manager of Two Metals LLC. That's the technical name that owns the business and the license. Michael has been the owner and operator of 89 Centrale for quite some time now. He has been the manager of the liquor license. I think that it is a situation where there has never been a complaint regarding the management of alcohol at the premises. Michael was recently able to obtain the first floor of the building, something that he's been trying to do for quite some time. Gentlemen are very familiar with the building and recognize its historical significance in downtown Milford. The first floor has some dramatic openings with the large windows facing Main Street and the beams inside. Michael intends to create a function room and expansion of the restaurant there with approximately 35 seats maximum, depending on the layout of tables for the particular use of that night. There'll be a small bar area. I have put a plan up on the board. It's a small one, but I don't know if the camera can pick it up. But this is basically, if I may, the first floor. Spruce Street running here, Main Street here, that flat iron aspect of the building. And so this room is basically shaped like the building, getting wider as it goes back west along Main Street. There will be tables in the entrance along the outside of the walls, so that there'll be views. So it's like we'll create, in essence, the first street cityscape on Main Street in quite some time, where there will actually be tables with windows looking out very, very much like you would see in the city. There will also be a separate bar here, having approximately 6 to 8 stools, again, depending on the configuration, with a full bar area, storage area behind it. You will see that in the corner here, there is an access way, and this access way goes to the rest of what is the prep area for the restaurant. So this is on the first floor. Most of the prep is done on that floor. The actual kitchen's downstairs. There'll be some modifications with some cooking apparatus here, new kinds of convection ovens that will allow Michael to cook in a different way and create a situation where we don't have to do the full exhaust. The entrance will be right on Main Street. There will not be a direct entrance from the restaurant existing. Be right on Main Street. You'll be right in the door again, the furthest up this way, westerly on the street. Be able to come in and then go into the restaurant here. This door will not, this will be just an emergency door. And then the men's rooms and lady rooms, which function already, where you come up the stairs for them, will now be on this level. There'll be direct access there. So this provides an opportunity for Michael to have a function area, expand the services of the restaurant, and then for the first time, provide full and complete handicapped accessibility on the first floor on Main Street. Took a long time to get it. He's been working on it a while with the landlord. There were other tenants. Obviously, it's a significant investment. I think it's a statement of Michael's continued commitment to downtown Milford and the Milford community. We don't anticipate any issues relative to the build-out. Michael spent time with John Erickson prior to us filing the application to make certain that the building inspector would be okay with the manner in which we've laid it out inside for safety purposes. Before I filed the application, I made a preliminary call to the ABCC, to their council, to make certain that all we needed was an alteration license, that we didn't need a change of location, because the address could technically be A or B, and I was confirmed with them that just the way to do it was strictly the alteration. So feel comfortable with the application as presented. We've submitted the financial information, and that's probably as much as I've got to say. I can't wait. I go there all the time anyway, so, but I'm really excited.
Actually, it's just 35, huh?
Well, it's 35 seats. I've got 35 seats at tables, another 6 at the bar, so that would give you 41. But those can be manipulated a little bit. If you had like a function, a family function, a small wedding or graduation, you could get 50, 55 people in there for occupancy. There's no problem with the occupancy loads, but the way we've set it up, just to make it accessible and to have that ambiance to it, set up with 35
great.
seats, plus or minus.
Yeah. Joe, we've been saying this for the past 30 years. It would be nice to have that on Main Street, so it's nice that it's coming to fruition. We have the chairman of the Commission on Disability, so he's very happy that it's fully accessible. And as far as the timetable,
Well, we already started. I mean, it should be another couple of months before we conclude everything. Should be ready by beginning of spring, I hope. Depending on the weather, what kind of weather we're gonna get.
Sure.
We lost a couple of days of snowstorm, but it's moving along. So we have a team of professionals that they have, their scheduled work already, so they're good.
and then when it's done, the honorable board will come down to
Absolutely, yes.
enjoy, right?
Well, we have to have a.
Some more.
Of course, of course.
Okay. Any questions, Brian?
Yeah, no, excellent, this is great news. Obviously, I think very highly of your restaurant, and I'm going to say that it's not only the best restaurant in Milford, I think it's the best restaurant, period. It's beats anything in Federal Hill,
Thank you.
the North End, wherever it is. I mean, it's just a wonderful, wonderful place. We're so lucky to have it here in Milford, and we're so lucky to have it on Main Street. So I'm obviously fully supportive of this change. Let me just ask a quick question, though. Is this only for function use, or are you going to be using this first floor as part of your regular, everyday business?
Yeah, the plan is it's not an overflow of what we have downstairs. It's strictly to accommodate the request for private dining that are coming from all over the place, whether it's companies and they want specifically a private room. So it's not gonna interfere with the downstairs. And-
So on any given night, say, I don't know, Friday or Saturday,
Mhm.
is this going to be open to the general public?
It's not, no, unless it's been previously booked a couple of days in advance by anyone can book it, and there's certain conditions before you can book it
Okay,
to have that space.
Okay.
So that's how it's gonna work.
so it's more or less, I guess, going to be serving as particular as a function area?
As a private function, yes. We call
Okay.
it private dining, whether it's for a group of 10 people that wanna have a wine dinner or wine tasting, or for whatever occasion.
Okay.
It could be business meeting, and to go along with dinner, stuff like that.
Yep, yep,
So that's for that purpose only,
okay.
yeah. And,
Well, obviously, wish you continued success,
Thank
and again, just real thankful for the great job that you do here, and best of luck with everything.
thank you very much.
Thanks, Brian. Bill?
No, I'm supportive as well. I think that Michael represents exactly the type of business that we like in Milford, want in Milford, and between you, your staff, the food that you put together, it's just a great atmosphere and a great place to go. I've been there at times when there's been 50th birthday party or some function where it just makes sense to do that, and the private dining is a great opportunity to sample your great food and still have a function. So it makes sense to me. I know you're making a personal commitment. I expect that the town will respond in kind with their commitment to your business. And I wish you a lot of luck.
Thank you very much. Well, we have people coming from Providence now here, so.
Oh, nice.
From Federal Hill, they're coming here.
No, that's great. I mean, the thing is,
I don't doubt it.
I hope that you can put in
Yeah.
more than 35 seats or whatever.
And a lot of people from the surrounding areas are
Sure.
discovering Milford again, whether
Yeah.
it's from Holliston or Franklin or Hopedale, Upton, so.
Well,
Mr. Chairman, if
Yeah,
I might
go
add,
ahead.
you know, I think it shouldn't be lost on folks either that the upgrade that will happen with not only your investment, but also the business that was there, frankly, was a little bit troubled and had the attention of the police. And so I think there are many, many reasons why this is just a great thing, expansion of a great business with a great reputation, and the business that was there no longer there. So, you know, I'm happy to see that corner. You'll be doing a lot for the town, not just from a standpoint of putting out great meals and great service, but also the expansion there is helpful to us as well as a community.
I have some friends in Wellesley, they've gone to the symphony a couple of times, but before the symphony, they went to your place, and so it's great.
That's great.
With those steps going down, I haven't been there in a while, but I'll be able to go upstairs, though. All right. Any other questions? Is there a motion for the
I'll move
alteration of
for approval.
premises?
Second.
Okay, motion by Brian, seconded by Bill. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Good luck.
I would be amiss if I didn't take an opportunity to thank your staff, Gene and Rick, in getting the license processed. As you know, I work in a lot of different towns, and Milford continues to always be the town where one gets the most cooperation inside the building, and that you need to hear that, because I think that's important.
Thank you.
From the standpoint, and I'm in enough different places to be able to make that kind of judgment. So, thanks to both of them.
Okay, good luck and buona salute, huh?
Heading over to 89 now, Joe?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Absolutely.
That's what I figured.
I told my wife, just meet us over there. Thank you very
Good
much.
move.
We appreciate it. Thanks.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Joe, always nice to see you.
Nice seeing you.
Bye-bye. Okay, next, Zach. We have our town accountant, Zachary Taylor, and we've been talking about this for a while, and we have town council also sitting in. This is creating a finance department and all the things that go with it, the pros and cons. Before we get into that, I'd like to ask Jack just to take a few minutes to talk about the present finances of the community, how it's going, and then what's some of the things that he would recommend going forward, and then we can get into this. Okay, Zach?
All right, that sounds like a plan. So we just got done closing January. So provided the sheet, looks like Brian has it in front of him there. So through January, about halfway through the operating budget that's been approved, which is pretty good considering we're more than halfway through the year. Cash came in around $47 million, which is also projected very well. That's a good benchmark, and we haven't even started collecting the FY15 motor vehicle excise tax, which is one of the bigger components of our local receipts there. So that seems to be on
3.5 million around there?
a little better, but yeah, right around there, yep. So, so we seem to be on point there as well. Our stabilization account has reached an all-time high with the combined balance. We have two stabilization accounts. We're looking at around $15.7 million, which is fantastic. So we've been getting some pretty good return on investment there, and that's presented at market value. So that's very good right there too. On a little bit of a negative note, as expected, we do have a snow and ice deficit that is hitting us right now, and later on this evening, we're going to ask you to vote to approve continued deficit spending on that. There's a couple issues we have with budgets that we're going to expect to deal with at town meeting, one sure Rick will talk about later this evening, injured on duty. That's one of those accounts where we try to budget, but you have no idea what it's actually gonna be, and obviously we have to take care of those bills. Looks like we may have a slight issue in our 192 budget, which is public building and property. Rick will speak more about that later, but we have plans to take care of that either through 33B transfers at annual town meeting, or in the case of injured on duty, we may have to supplement the budget. But we're gonna be rolling into this town meeting with a little over $1.4 million in free cash, so that should not be a problem whatsoever, and we should be able to do some good things with that there. Also, we've been looking at some of our revenue projections for this upcoming town meeting. At this point, we're staying very conservative with not expecting any increases with state aid. However, even with that said, we know what we can do with the levy. Magic of Proposition 2.5, it's very predictable. But we also went in with a pretty conservative figure, where new growth has been pretty aggressive lately, but for budgeting purposes, we went in around 400,000, level funded, state aid, like I discussed, and the same deal with local receipts. And even with all that said and done, we're still looking at a revenue stream of around $96 million, including enterprise funds. So we're in very good shape. We're gonna continue to try to meet our goals of continued excess levy capacity, by offsetting some money to the taxpayers. We're continuing to budget a minimum of $1 million for capital. We're continuing to earmark money for stabilization contributions, and then that still kicks out some room for growth for budgets for this year. So the plan is, I'll be attending Finance Committee Executive Committee on the 23rd, where we're gonna really iron out and come up with a solid directive plan for budgets. But there's some things we're really gonna need to address this year, one of the biggest ones being National Grid. We got clobbered this year with a new rate that Mr. Valani had negotiated, which actually in hindsight is pretty competitive considering what we could have gotten if we waited any longer. Nonetheless, the impact is gonna be around $500,000 to the town, so clearly we have to address that. We need to keep the lights on, so that, when we're building our projections on what the budget could look like, we're building that into it. We have some IT needs, we're building that into, but it looks like we'll have a successful budget year again.
No, Zach, we really appreciate the work that you've done, especially as we go forward here. And I think it's important that we continue to have the financial team that meets regularly. Hopefully we can meet once a month, because I think the expertise that you and Paul Abedanza provide to the FinCom and to this board is second to none.
Very lucky to have Paul, he's a very
No
smart
question
guy.
about it. And I think there's a gentleman who should be utilized even in greater form. But, the guidance and leadership that you provide. So I think if the town continues to do all those things, I think we can remain as well as we are financially, just spending the monies wisely.
Definitely.
When we can put free cash to offset bonding and all that, and pay things off, and also I think as a community, you always have to look at extra revenue, because it's important, because you can streamline all you want, you can hold the line, but you gotta keep looking at different ways of obtaining tax dollars to increase the tax base. So
Revenue stream coming in is gonna be,
no question about it. And
Very
so we appreciate the work, and we also appreciate all the work that you've done as far as the formulation of this finance plan and all the details. So with that, we can get into that now, okay?
all right, sounds good, so obviously.
And then the
we're-
board members, I'm sure, will have questions to ask you and their own comments and all that.
Sounds like a plan. So I put together a little bit of a timeline for you guys to follow along and to help me get what we're talking about here, but we're here to discuss a true municipal finance department. So I'll start off with a little bit of history of how we got here today. So around this time last year, we were at town meeting and we converted the treasurer from an elected position into an appointed position. We had our first ever appointment, did not work out, mutually split ways, and now we're here again in a position without a treasurer. In December, the board met and made me interim finance director. Interim because it's gonna take special legislation in town meeting to make this official, which this is what this plan is laying out. We hope to have this on the warrant in May and get this done. So, once again, we have a temporary treasurer, Kelly Capisi, who's doing a great job. Although we are short-staffed, it's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of weekend work, a lot of nighttime work, and we're kind of just staying afloat right now. So what we hope to accomplish is get this plan approved and get us fully staffed, and it's going to be a little bit of a few changes. I've been here long enough now where I've analyzed the situation, and we have this plan tailored for Milford, no pun intended. So it should, hopefully, if everything goes right, this is gonna be a really good situation. So currently, right now, we have an accounting office with me as town accountant slash interim finance director right now. I have a staff of 3, all right? So we have Kelly Capisi as temporary treasurer, and Janet Ferreira stepped up as the assistant, and they have one union clerk in there right now. So it's definitely a lot of workload, and they're doing a great job right now. But again, we're just staying afloat, so really want to get the ball rolling on this and get full staffed again. We currently also have a elected tax collector. I'll get into that a little bit, but what this plan would do would be the same as what we did last year with taking the treasurer from elected to appointed. We're going to be looking to be doing the same thing. And there's a few reasons why we'll get to when we get in there. But, so a little bit of a timeline here. So tonight, what I'm looking to do is seek approval of this plan to move forward, okay? Second, one of the big observations that I have made is that the treasurer's office just simply is completely overwhelmed with work. And it's due large in fact that we've never had a benefits coordinator position, and a lot of other communities do, and it helps ease the pain. So nowadays with health insurance and again, we do full blown out in-house payroll. It's a lot of work. You know, there's communities, there's companies that outsource it to companies such as Paychecks, Advantage, stuff like that, and they handle it. We do everything in-house, town, school, all in-house, from taxes to all these different benefits that we offer, which is upwards of 12 different benefits, flexible spending plans, tax-sheltered annuities. It's a tremendous amount of work, a tremendous amount of paperwork on a daily basis. We have a lot of employees that we employ in the town of Milford, so it's just a continuous, ongoing effort just to keep up with payroll. We do weekly warrants, so it's a lot of work. And that's not even, I haven't even mentioned true treasury duties. So since I've been here, I've observed that it just hasn't been given the proper attention on either side. It's just been an overwhelming situation. So what this proposal is gonna do is put a separation of duties within the treasurer's office, establish a benefits coordinator that's gonna handle health insurance, a lot of these other benefits, a lot of payroll issues, and take that off the plate of a treasurer where they could focus on the more important, I don't wanna say important, but a lot of the classic treasury duties such as cash reconciliation, which is obviously extremely important, bonding, debt, and tax compliance, 1099 vendors. There's just so much work, and again, we're just staying afloat right now. So what we're trying to do is break it up into a proper structure, break out proper departments with proper employees, and get proper protocol and review process, and everything should run a lot smoother, ease the burden on a lot of people. So that's what we're looking to do. So
And we have the right person for that, and then also, you know, I think that the employees should have a handbook, a professional handbook.
definitely, that's
Should have had probably, you know, a long time ago.
definitely. So I mean, even I remember I walked in here when you get hired. You start in the selectman's office, you move your way down to treasury, you go over to accounting to get some of your union stuff, you'd go next door to retirement. So it's just kind of like been shuffled all over the place. So what this is going to achieve is have all that rightfully so in one location, as well as some additional stuff, as you discussed. We do plan on implementing employee handbooks, even going as far as orientation and whatnot. So there's some big plans, and I certainly think it's achievable, and we do have the right person for the position, so very excited about that. So following this timeline here, again, following tonight, I hope to get approval to move forward. The next step that I plan on taking should be probably at this point, not February, but early March. What we'd be doing is going to the personnel board to bring a draft copy of a job description for a benefits coordinator and have them properly rank them on Article 2. We're expecting a salaried position like other department heads. At that point, once we have it on there, hopefully it'll be in time to also have that on the warrant to be properly voted under Article 2 at the Maytown meeting. Somewhat simultaneously, we're gonna be redrafting a job description for the treasurer based on this plan and based on the removal of some new duties. So what we expect to do is reduce the salary that was last offered under the first appointed treasurer. We're removing a lot of the duties from still want to give a modest salary. I'm expecting around 75,000, something like that. So we will post that, and we'll give proper attention to getting the candidates in here. I definitely would like to participate in the interview process along with Town Administrator Valani there. And what we'd probably do is, once we feel we have proper candidates, we'll put them in front of your board to make the appointment. As we're moving along, next we'll be into May, annual town meeting will be up. We'll have new budgets that will allow for these salaries and new structure to fall into place. Hopefully that goes through, that gets voted, and we'll be ready to rock and roll with the rest of the appointments. So at that time, we'll be at year end, and if we have a treasurer if we're lucky enough to have a treasurer come in at that time, then temporary treasurer Kelly Capisi and assistant treasurer Janet Frere would fall back into what their roles were until a budget allows for new growth, new positions to happen. So once July comes, I would be recommending Kelly Capisi to be the first appointed benefits coordinator, and Assistant Janet will be given an opportunity to take either assistant position, which I think she's more than capable of performing either one. She's been in the treasurer's office a long time and very competent and has been learning a lot, and I think she could do very well in either position. So that would give her the opportunity for that. And then once those fall into place, we'll just have one more appointment to make. And again, I would hope to do the interviewing and filter out certain people, come forward and present a couple candidates, and we can make an appointment there, and we'll be fully up and running. So that's the current plan right now, and we're hoping to secure approval.
And the tax collector, if it goes forward, that would have to be dealt with at town meeting, right?
Well, the schedule for town meeting, one of the most important steps is to get town meeting approval and legislative approval of that municipal finance department special legislation. That becomes sort of like the constitution or the foundation of the department. You can do a lot of this, and you may decide to do a lot of this if should town meeting defeat it or should it not pass the legislature. But this is what will really empower it. One part of it is the tax collector becoming appointed as opposed to, but there's a lot more to it than that. It's what really would empower your finance director. Right now, you've named Zach interim finance director, and is doing a great job. He will do a great job with a position which has no authority whatsoever. And this spells out the authority, the responsibility in the broadest sense, and then you folks, through your job description and your direction to him and to others, narrow that down so that there's a little more clarity. But this is the foundation of it. It's drawn on, the concept of a finance department, finance director has been prevalent in in towns of our size, smaller and larger, for the last 30-plus years. So what you have here, I put together as an amalgam of a number of pieces of special legislation that I've looked at. And this is one that I took and I, based upon my knowledge of Milford, my knowledge of you folks, is one I thought that would work. Others are much stronger and much more power to the finance director. Some have very little power to the finance. This falls somewhere in the middle. Final appointing authority, final authority is always with your board. But he actually will have real authority to make some decisions and to be able to get some things done, where in theory that isn't available now, and your board couldn't even authorize that. So again, right back to the beginning, this is like the constitution of the finance department, the foundation of it.
So Zach, as far as fiscal policies, looking over departments, making sure that monies are being spent well, appropriately, not that they're not now, but that would greatly enhance that whole process where all these people would be, you would be overseeing all these individuals.
Absolutely, and some of like the bigger issues, as Jerry was saying, where I have no authorization with the current structure, a treasurer theoretically could walk in and bond for example, the Woodland school project, where I could disagree and they could move forward and do it anyway. So I think it's just so important of issues where I should, and this isn't also meant just for myself. I'm looking at it where, say, I move on, someone else could walk into this situation, and someone with similar expertise could also handle this situation. And I think it's just proper that you have more than one set of eyes that is handling such important issues.
And by doing all this, if it does happen, if it does occur, we're not really adding many more individuals, right?
No, basically, the implementation would be taking a part-time employee and making it full-time. So there's a cost analysis that was put in the back of this, plan, and basically for straight-up salary impact, be looking at around $20,000 to implement.
And I would
And
think,
that's also with me taking an aggressive approach. There's nothing says personnel board's gonna rank some of these positions lower. Nothing says that we're gonna have a treasurer come in that's less than the 75 that I put in there. So I tried taking a realistic and aggressive approach on it, so we could actually do better.
and Jerry, as far as the tax collector, the Teresa would have protection if it were going to.
In the legislation itself, the incumbent, which presumably will be her, I mean, she'll,
Yeah.
we would hope, the incumbent becomes your first, so you don't have that initial appointment. But all the appointments after that are by your board. So she's got that protection, she's got the job to start, and there's language in there, similar to others, that allow your board to have a contract with the treasurer, have a contract with the tax collector. And that's what you'll do that going forward, and of course, that will give you, the kind of control that you want over contract employees as opposed to elected employees.
And she's transitioned very well into the position.
Oh, sure.
So, no complaints there, she's doing a fantastic job.
And on a human level, we met with her when we first put this together, and she's, I think I can say for her, she's in favor of it.
And I think, before we get to Brian and Bill, I think when everything is okay, when there's a lot of money's available, a lot of accounts and all that, but I think what would really make a difference in the future, if things get a little bit tight, if things get, less local aid and whatnot, by having this in place and you at the helm, I think would be greatly beneficial to the community as far as the finances and all that. And I think you'd be able to provide the leadership and the monitoring and all that that's necessary, and to provide recommendations. So I think this would be, really, really prudent going forward for all those reasons.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we'll turn it over to the board members now. Brian?
Thank you. Zach, let me just tell you, first of all, the memorandum that you put together for dated January 22nd, outlining this plan, I think was really one of the best that I've ever read in terms of a proposed plan going forward. It was very well thought out, very organized, very logical, and very easy to follow. So, I want to thank you for
Thank
that
you.
great work in terms of trying to bring this together. I guess let me just toss out some random thoughts here. I see this as sort of a natural evolution of what was done with the budget team. When I first came here back in 2000, it was difficult for me to kind of get my arms around the budgetary process. You had the finance committee, you had a town treasurer, you had a town accountant, of course, the selectmen, the town administrator, and it was really kind of organized but not organized.
Yeah.
So, one of the proposals that I made, and my colleagues went along with it, was to put that budget team together, to meet periodically, to try to bring all of the interested parties together to really get on the same page budget-wise, and I think it's worked very, very well over the years. This, to me, seems to be the next step to really formalize the organizational process. So now that we have the finance director, you've got the collections aspect of it, the treasury aspect of it, and the human benefits aspect, which, just as a sideline, it seems to me that part of the town's duties fell more or less, I guess, by default to the treasurer's office. I know Bob Rozier did a tremendous job in kind of taking that and bringing it under her umbrella and doing that, but I don't take it that that's a typical treasurer's role in other towns to be administering, benefits and all of that. And of course, what has happened over the years is that aspect of the job has just grown so much that, again, your plan makes perfect sense, to do that. And while I'm talking about this, I also want to take the time to thank somebody who I don't think gets enough thanks, and that's Kelly Capisi. And she's right there in the back. She's done a great job for a lot of years for the town of Milford, and particularly this last year, which was extremely difficult. And she was just, the backbone of that office to really keep things running. So, Kelly, thank you very much for everything you've done for the town. The other thing that this does is really make the buck stop here at this table. And I think it makes clear to the voters of the town of Milford, to the taxpayers of the town of Milford, that this board is accountable. Because we're going to be responsible for the town administrator, we're going to be responsible for the finance director, all of the other personnel underneath. So if things don't go well, the voters look at this table, and we're the ones. And it's analogous, I suppose, to the police department or the fire department. It's the same type of organizational thought process. Each department has their own lieutenants or sergeants with individual duties and responsibilities. But ultimately, if something goes wrong with the department, we look to the chief, and that's the person that we hold accountable. So, instead of a board of selectmen perhaps saying, well, geez, there's a budgetary problem, but it was the treasurer's fault, and we have no control. Well, we had collection problems, that's the tax collector's problem. There's no pawning it off on anybody if this structure is to go forward. I think it's much clearer to the taxpayers who's ultimately responsible. This board of selectmen, and independently elected, answerable to the taxpayers. I think that's the way it ought to be. And it's up to this board and future boards to use their best judgment, their best decision-making. And it's a tremendous incentive to put the most qualified people in these particular positions, as opposed to someone who might be a friend or something like that. It really does, I think, incentivize this board seeking, the best appointment, for these particular positions. So, having said that, obviously, I'm in favor of this plan and supportive of it. And just for clarification, so Jerry, you talked about the special legislation, which you gave us a draft in terms of the municipal finance department. Is there something separate that needs to be done to remove the tax collector?
It's within that.
It's within that, okay. So this would all be encompassed just in this one draft piece, and would go forward similar to what we did last year with the town treasurer position in terms of process.
Got to go on the warrant, be voted by town meeting, majority vote, and then off to the legislature.
Yeah, yeah. And, just as sort of an ancillary thing, before you leave, the table here, I am quite concerned about the Finance Committee's memo that went out to the department heads. And I'm doubly concerned to see that the Finance Committee on January 14th basically agreed and approved with that memo. So, you know, we've had conversation before. I don't think the memo makes a lot of sense. I think it's very confusing to department heads. There are department heads that have come to me and said that they've been confused by it. You know, this needs to be addressed, and a clear communication needs to be put forth to department heads as to what kind of list is out there. Is there some separate expenditure list, the mystery list that we don't know about? You know, what are we gonna do with capital needs? I mean, the FinCom may or may not have an idea as to how they want to address this thing in terms of process, but it's not being communicated to the department heads clearly, and that's gotta change before this town meeting. So that's all of the random thoughts that I have on this, so with that, I'll
Yeah, thank you.
turn it over.
Bill?
There are a lot of reasons why, when I read this, I'm in favor of it. Not the least of which it seems to, in my mind, bring together and leverage the skill sets of a lot of different people. Some people who have yet to be hired, and others who have demonstrated abilities. I'm glad that Brian brought up Kelly, because I think the feedback I've received and the assistance that has been provided to employees on a one-to-one basis, on a very personal nature, some of the things that Kelly has to help with in assisting and guiding employees through sometimes some difficult life events, for lack of a better term. It's clearly her skill. I think she's demonstrated that over years, so that's an outstanding aspect of this. It also, in my opinion, is the beginning of what's long been lacking in terms of a single point of focus as we look to consolidate HR-type benefits. Under the Treasurer's Department, it was something that was put there for lack of strategy, but this has strategy. This has long-term ability to be sustainable, and for that, I'm supportive of it. Consolidation of financial roles. And I'm glad it was brought up when we talked about policy. I don't see it enough in the job description. So creation of the financial policies, I think we can strengthen a little bit before we take it to the legislation, before we take it to town meeting. Because it would be my expectation that you would create those policies as finance director. Now, it's not to say it's not without consultation with department heads, FinCom, capital planning, and a host of others, including, frankly, this board. But I think it would go a long way to clarify. Now, having said that, I've been through a lot of budget cycles in the private sector, and that doesn't always go smoothly either. So I don't want to pretend in the private sector or anywhere else that people are clear when financial directives come out. It still takes clarification, it still takes honing, and people are always going to have unique circumstances where they're going to say, well, what about this? So I would expect that the financial director, as we move forward, would have clear and unambiguous language as it relates to financial policy directive, setting of the schedule, in meeting with department heads, and that budget schedule that we'd expect to back out from town meeting dates. I have to tell you, part of it from the school department. They've got a long-standing budget schedule. That's not to say it isn't without flaws, but I've not seen that here, and I'd like to see that. And I think you're the person to create that and to give the guidance, specifically from a finance director's position. So I'd like to see financial policy, budget schedule, setting of budget schedule, and guidance to that schedule.
That's something that's definitely coming down the line.
Yeah, and I'd like to make sure that it's clear in the language here. I think we get one swing.
Not in the legislation, but in the legislation, again, that's like the Constitution. Now, what's going
Yeah.
to come after that are the policies that the finance director and your board will develop, not as part of the legislation, but now that's what you're going to develop going forward.
Well, then I'd like to see it in a job description.
That's separate, yeah, and that's fine. But you don't put that in the short, simple legislation. That's something you do separately, do job descriptions that you folks have to agree upon, go to the personnel board on it, and Zach developing the kind of policies that you're talking about, working with you, and you're approving those, putting them in place, that's all done outside the legislation. And again, parts of that can still be done, even if the legislation doesn't pass, which I expect it will, but parts of that can still be done.
Okay.
But this is, again, this is the simple vote on this, not having all the dates and everything else of submissions and that kind of thing. That's
No, I don't
all-
expect to have the dates. I guess what I'm saying is being clear that the finance director owns that schedule and owns the budget policies.
And that's what you're gonna, that's what you're gonna work up with now and going forward. But again, you don't put it in the legislation itself.
Okay, and so maybe we should have a separate job description that we just, why don't I, make that ask, that we create a separate job description so that we clarify it and you incorporate some of the thoughts. Some of them are clearly outlined in the legislation, and then others are whatever. Because we go so far within the legislation as to talk about appointing authority and responsibility, hire, fire, that type of thing, so I think we can hone that. It does, let me tell you where I'm troubled. It's a matter of principle. It's not been my history to support taking a position that was previously appointed by the electorate and taking that out of a vote by the community. I disagreed with the treasurer position. That didn't work out well. It wasn't a pleasant experience. I'm concerned about this, but I'm going to tell you, I'm willing to go forward with the proposal that exists now. I want to tell you, it still goes against my DNA to be supportive of that. But there's enough, I'm smart enough, I guess, to say, there's enough great things in this that I think that we ought to move forward. And there are sometimes pills that you swallow in order to get there. From an organizational perspective, Jerry, I'm not sure, that organizational chart is not part of the legislation, right?
No. The
Okay.
legislation is just these.
This is to provide guidance to
The
us.
one, it's 4 paragraphs is all that is. That's the legislation. Again, would be like the constitution of the department. Now, everything else that Zach is giving you is how he wants to structure it and work with your board in structuring it and developing, I guess, the job descriptions, the policies, and the procedures that will then go along.
I just want to clear, and I want to, validate with you that this doesn't do anything different with respect to town accountant's position. Hiring authority still remains with the Board of Selectmen.
Oh, very clearly, it's with the Board of Selectmen and all. It's in
That's the way I read
that's
it.
in- That's in the legislation.
I read that clearly.
That's part of the base.
On a day-to-day basis, it has it reporting to, from an organizational chart perspective, outside of the legislation, town administrator. But hire, fire responsibility for that position is the Board of Selectmen, okay? And then I'm going to assume that based on the organizational chart that was provided, and we have to start creating revisions of documents so that people can follow them through a trail, that it is the department heads that have responsibility for hiring and firing. Jerry, that's not true, is it? I guess.
No, that's, nothing, this doesn't change any in terms of hiring and firing. It stays what it is, except like in the instance of the tax collector, just as a treasurer now. The hiring, you may delegate it to Rick, you may delegate it to Zach, but the ultimate authority, these boards being under your jurisdiction, falls with you. You may, accept my hiring of my secretary, but actually the authority is yours. So that doesn't change, nothing in here changes any of that.
So that still requires a vote by the Board of Selectmen.
It should, sure.
Even at the clerk level.
Sure, even at the smallest clerk level, yeah.
Okay, I want to understand how much we're stretching and how much we're changing. Okay, I'm supportive of it. Again, there's some reservation, but we'll move along and,
Thank you, Bill. I think it was last April, one of the many things that I talked to the administrator about was, one of them was HR department. The town of Milford should have an HR department. And I talked to you, Zach, many, many times about how could we do that. We even mentioned about Kelly taking over that. And also strengthening the finance department. So I think if you look at Milford now, hopefully the town meeting form of government will never change. I think that's the purest form. But I think what we've done, as far as some of the job responsibilities, the changes that were made with the administrator, having that person, that individual have more authority on the everyday operations. I think now that we're looking at the finances, what we did with the treasurer's position. And I think we've been lucky over the years. We've had great people, but that's not always the case. So I think as far as serving the public, you want the best people, best qualified people. And as Bill mentioned, with the treasurers, we hired someone, she was the, most qualified person, but it didn't work out. Those things happen, So I think going forward, for the protection of the residents, for the service delivery to the residents, to make sure they're getting the best, and also to protect the accountability as far as the finances. You can't make mistakes with financial matters. If you look at some of the other communities, when they do get in trouble, it's always someone forgot to do something, or it wasn't well planned, they didn't have the right people at the right positions. So I think, going forward, we're doing this, as Brian said, the accountability, so that people are accountable. And the last resort is this board. And so the responsibility will be upon us, incumbent upon us, to make sure that things are being done well, and that the people in Milford are being, serviced to the highest degree, and that, things are always being proactively done to make the system better. So, I think we're all unanimous, and this is a great report, and we wanted to hear it about 2 or 3 meetings ago about the storm.
Yeah, I didn't think we'd ever get here.
You want to talk about that? You want to talk about deficit spending for the snow and
please.
ice?
I think we need a motion on
Yes.
this, though, too.
So you should vote to put the
If you look at the,
article on the warrant.
yeah, if you look at the summary, there's 2 motions that we would like to see.
Yeah, so we're gonna need a motion of the municipal finance structure plan, which I would,
Okay, motion
approve
by Brian.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? And then the other would be the deficit spending.
No,
The
motion,
article
just
for
a
the-
One
motion
more
to
vote.
put the
Okay, all right.
legislation in the warrant.
Oh, okay, yes, as far as that, okay.
Yeah, so
Motion
I'll
by,
make
yep.
that motion for
Motion
town
by
meeting.
Brian.
second.
Seconded by Bill. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? And as far as the deficit spending, Zach, what's the number now?
Looking at around $200,000 after approval of these warrants coming up.
Okay.
It's all snow and ice, or would you like to?
It's all snow and ice, yeah.
What's the addition, is it still 500,000?
It's 500,000, yeah.
You're up to about 700 now, you think?
It's, following these 2 warrants, we're gonna be pushing 700,000, yeah. And it might actually be time to increase that a little bit, 'cause
I remember we had talked about that a number of years ago, it may have been before you came here, there was talk to make it 750,000.
Yeah, right.
And I don't know if it was actually done a year or two, but we talked about it.
It doesn't, and we
you
decided
can't-
there wasn't a penalty for
Yeah.
not doing it at the time. But I think as costs go up, and
I think we're kind of lucky too.
Once
that-
you, to
didn't
keep
spend
in
that much
mind,
money.
once you do increase that budget.
Stays there.
There's no going back.
Right.
So, I'm not sure, would recommend it's going as aggressive as 750, but certainly 600.
that's essentially to create the reserve, not to,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So we have an awesome winter, it's really warm, we don't have much snow,
Returns back to the
right back down.
general fund.
Correct, correct.
But always stays at that amount, to your point.
Yes, it will.
And we
Yes.
also need a motion to seek approval to allow continued service for the town as far as deficit spending, right?
Correct.
Zach? Motion by Brian,
I'll move.
seconded by Bill.
I'll second for discussion. I just wanted one clarifying point.
Yeah.
The number that you're talking about with respect to deficit spending on snow and ice, does that take into account the potential for FEMA or MEMA reimbursement?
It does not.
It does not.
Doesn't take into account potential. If that was to occur, it would end up being a general fund receipt. It cannot return to the operating budget.
Okay, I want to process what you just said.
So say this does get approved, we have an application in right now with MEMA, and the next step, and this is just simply an application.
You're right.
Yeah, if it gets approved, the next step would be they're really gonna look at our figures, we'll have to make copies of all our invoices and whatnot. That'll get there, they'll give the final approval on that, and typically, the way I've seen it, might be 2-3 years later, but even if it was immediate,
Yeah, it wouldn't go directly to the account.
it would have,
It's the general fund.
Correct.
Okay, so for the benefit of people not intimate with these discussions, what we're talking about is the states of emergency that or at least in one point, a state of emergency that the governor declared.
Correct.
That qualified the community and the state for federal emergency reimbursement.
You got it.
Right now, we're in the application phase, and that money is not likely to be seen for some number of months and maybe years.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, I just wanted to see
Yeah.
if it was accounted for and how it was accounted for. Right now, we've got to move forward with our deficit as is and hope that our application goes through the process and is
You got it.
recouped. Okay.
Which I did review all the work, and department heads did a great job. Police chief Laughlin, fire chief Tui, and Scott Christopoli, highway surveyor. They did a very good job putting it together, so.
And Zach, that's the report that we're asking, this one here, $167,000 for
got it.
reimbursement.
That's it right there, yep. So they
This
did a
has
very
been
good
submitted? Has it been submitted yet? or
job. It
not?
has. I think it was submitted Monday.
Monday,
Yeah.
last Monday.
And with the new declaration, do we expect the potential for the last storm to follow into a new category for reimbursement possibly?
This last storm that we just had,
This last storm we just had.
if it would be a completely separate application.
Okay.
But I'm not sure that we've heard anything on that.
Are you getting
yet.
any guidance on that yet?
Not yet, we have not
Okay,
heard.
all right,
Yeah.
We will follow up.
all right.
That doesn't matter, we're not gonna get any more snow, right? We're all set.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
a-
we're done.
No,
We're
make
done.
it 2 inches tonight. Okay. Zach, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Good luck, Zach.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You need to vote on,
Take the assessor next.
What, Rick?
Take the assessor next, tax collector.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, vote, I'm sorry, Bill.
Yeah, okay.
to continue deficit
Yeah, I
spend.
think we did.
Harold, we're gonna go to someone else. first,
Seconded for
okay?
discussion. If you said I did, I did.
Okay.
Boss.
You bet.
Jennifer, wanna come up? We're gonna take you now. Okay? Okay. All right, before us, Jennifer Sklar, she's the new assessor taking over from Priscilla, and I think she'll do a fantastic job. What we're talking about here is senior citizen tax relief. This is something that we started about 10 years ago and tried to provide a senior citizen tax relief as far as taxes go. And we had a committee, we met several times, we went to town meeting 2 or 3 times, and I believe that we adopted the asset limit and the income limit to the top degree as far as, I believe it's chapter 41C at town meeting. I held another committee meeting, well, we've had 3 committee meetings over the past 2 or 3 months to continue to see what we could do as far as helping more senior citizens stay in their home. And I think that's what this board, any board is always concerned about, doing everything we can to help out senior citizens. So the present committee is Aldo Chaki, Susan Clark, Priscilla Hogan, Donna Horrigan, Maria Romagnoli, Thomas Russ, Jennifer now will take the leads, Richard Swift, Zachary Taylor, and Richard Vellani. And we talked about several items, and Jennifer will explain this chart in a moment to give, where we are and all that. Presently, the age limit is 68. We've had, many deliberations, and one of the things that the committee unanimously felt is that we should go to town meeting, hopefully to this board first, get the approval, and change the age limit from 68 to 66. And hopefully, that will bring more people into play where we can assist more of the elderly. And then Jennifer will, and one of the other things is this board should probably meet on a yearly basis, Jennifer, with these committee members, if the board wants to, add other people. But I think this has been a good thing as far as helping senior citizens. And I guess we have about 60 people who take advantage of the program. But by lowering the age, that should certainly make more people eligible. And at this time, if you can just, update the board on this, a review of this chart, what this chart means,
Absolutely.
okay?
Class 41C exemption, this is just a simple chart to say that the current status or qualification is that their age limit needs to be 68 as of July 1st of the beginning of that fiscal year. And what it's telling you is what the maximum income that person can, or married couple can receive, and what their maximum asset limit can be, excluding their home. So for a single person who is not receiving Social Security benefits, their income limit is $20,000. They have to be at that number or below in order to qualify for this exemption. Their assets, bank accounts, retirement accounts, second homes, anything you can think of that's an asset. Maximum asset limit is 40,000. Married couple not receiving any Social Security benefits, 68 years old for one of the couple, 30,000 and 50,000 on the assets. The state does allow an adjustment for Social Security. If you do receive a Social Security benefit, when you total that with any other pensions or income that's being received, that maximum is 24,447 for a single person, 36,671 for a married couple, and the assets remain the same, 40,000 and 55,000 for a married couple. So it's just showing the basic guidelines. None of that would change if we're just reducing the age. Obviously, those income and asset limits would stay the same. Annually, however, the Social Security adjustment or allowance is changed slightly, 1%, something like that annually. And then at the bottom here, we have a chart that talks about average savings by fiscal year. And this is to show, on a Clause 41C only exemption, over from 2009 to 2014, what those savings have been. And the baseline for a Clause 41C exemption is $500. That's the statutory amount that's granted automatically. In addition to that, each year, Milford has voted.
Meeting 100% now.
Right,
Yeah.
to increase that amount by up to 100%, as long as they're not paying less tax than they did in the prior year. And so with that additional percentage that's being voted, these are the average tax dollar savings per application that are being recognized. So you can see it's climbing ever so slightly. We started back in 2009 at $739, and we're up to $896 per applicant. However, the number of people that are getting the exemptions has declined from 79 to 42.
Jen, why do you think that's occurring?
Well, I'll tell you what I did. I went to the town clerk, and I asked them if they could run me a list of population, 68 and over. Same thing, give me a 5-year gap. So I had them, they were able to give me 2008, and they were able to give me 2013. And what was interesting about that, in 2008, 68 and over, there were nearly 2,000 people. Fast forward 5 years, we have nearly 3,000 people. So there's 1,000 more people in that time frame, and yet the exemptions went from 82 to 42. So we have more people and less people getting it, which struck me as very odd. I can also tell you, and this is really the only other thing that I can kind of attribute to some of that, is that the requirement of the assessor's office now is to actually document with applicants everything that they're claiming on the form. If you're saying you have $200 in your checking account, we need a copy of your statement. So that was only in the last 2 cycles, and there were a few people that didn't qualify anymore based on providing some statements. But over the years, I don't have an explanation for that. Maybe, and I don't know historically what kind of, PR or push there is to get information out to the public. Obviously my recommendation would be to reach out to the local papers, put it on local cable when it's time to do those applications, and just try to you can do a tax bill stuffer. There's lots of ways to get information out to the public.
One of the things I did, when I added Sue Clark, I said, Sue, maybe you could, that newsletter, inform people at the
Exactly.
senior center, let people know about
Right.
the program, and also maybe put something in. I think the tax collector sends, when they send out bills, maybe they can put in a little flyer or something to let
Right.
people know. But
Right.
this board has always been very, very concerned and advocating to assist the elderly, especially for people living in their home. And so, we can do that. We can continue to work on other available things that come up in future years. But the recommendation now is to go to town meeting and to reduce the age limit from 68 to 66,
Right.
right? Okay. Brian, any questions?
Yeah, just a couple.
Yeah.
Jennifer, welcome.
Thank you.
Nice to see you again.
You too.
Yeah, that is interesting, and as I looked at the numbers, from 79 to 42, the people over the last 5 years, but I think you hit the nail on the head. Did you say, was it the last 2 cycles you required the verification?
Last 2 fiscal years.
Okay, I think that makes a big difference. Now, is that a state requirement?
The requirements aren't changed. The income limits, asset limits, all of that stuff is the same.
Well, I mean, the documentation.
But the documentation is really, it differs, every town differs, what
Okay,
you
okay.
require for information. Some require tax returns, some don't. you know.
Okay. I think that makes a difference, because just in my, limited exposure, I have come in contact with clients who I think would be eligible. I tell them to contact the assessor's office to see what, benefits they may be entitled to. And I have heard, oh, I've got to give them all information, I've got to give them my bank book, and I don't want to give that information. Well, I mean, that's part of the process. If you want to apply for the benefits, there's got to be a verification. So I think that might be somewhat of a deterrent, but, I'm certainly not suggesting to override that type of verification. I mean, that's necessary to see what's there. I think you're also correct in the sense that, if we could do a greater public awareness, I mean, maybe even, put on a seminar or something at the senior center. I know,
I've done those.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
and if you can show the people that it's not such a boogeyman to, have copies of your bank accounts and so forth. It's not that, because I think when they hear that initially, it's just so overwhelming, they don't even want to go down that road. But I think if they get a little bit of awareness, oh, well, that's not so bad, then maybe we'll get a little bit more people who participate, because my gut instinct tells me there's a heck of a lot more people who would qualify than in fact are receiving benefits. But I think this is a great start. It's nice to have this here, hopefully folks will watch it and get an awareness. Let me ask you a question. When you look at these maximum asset limits, how do trusts get handled in that?
Well, it's funny, I just made a note while you were speaking about ownership, and I think this is a good forum for me to just touch on this. I think that something that people need to think about, and obviously it will affect whether or not they qualify for an exemption, is the way that they hold ownership in their property. And we've had to deny people simply for that reason. They may meet every other criteria, and if, for example, it's in a trust,
Yep.
in order to qualify, meet the ownership requirement set by the state, you have to be both a trustee and a beneficiary. And most are not. They're one or the, they're the trustee, but the beneficiary of
That
their
kind of
children
defeats the
or their
purpose of the
family members.
trust.
Right,
Yeah.
and so, a lot of times they can get around that if they retain a life estate.
Right, okay. That's what I
So
thought.
a life estate will still give them that qualifier that they need.
Yep.
And we're not lawyers, we certainly don't want to negate any, estate planning that property owners have, done these trusts for, but we always say, go back to that attorney, ask them if you can have a life estate, if it will, you'll retain all of the intentions that you did this for in the first place, and then you still qualify to get some relief while you're in your home.
Sure.
So that's very important. The life estate has been a lifesaver for a lot of people.
Right.
And the trusts are what tend to hang people up
Sure,
the most.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Great.
wanted to talk about that, and I made a note about the public, the public records as well. When you said people have an apprehension to give that information, I would also just take this opportunity to say, if you want to apply for this exemption, all of that information
It's
is
confidential,
clearly
right?
confidential. That information is maintained in a locked, a cabinet. It's not shared with any other department. It's reviewed by 2 staff members only. So feel confident in knowing that that information is protected and held in the utmost confidence.
I think that's very important also. So I think if you could try to work to get those messages out, maybe through
Right.
the senior center or whatever, you might be able to reach some more people. But I think this is obviously a great start towards that end.
Yeah, thanks. Bill?
No, I appreciate the time that you've spent. Good to see you again, by the way. And thank you for coming in. I know you're working late. This makes a lot of sense to me. I'm curious myself why we would have a 50% increase in the population eligible, well, I don't know eligible, age eligible, let's start there, and have a 38% or, I'm sorry, 28%, I think, reduction since 2009. That makes me curious, and I think that, the best we can do is to create greater awareness. Awareness is the key, and every possible forum, if you could maybe get back to us and update us on Senior Center as a start, but there's certainly other forums and opportunities. Maybe we just hold our own forums specifically for that purpose. Hopefully in spring months when the weather isn't, we don't have 6-foot snowbanks, and
It's definitely good weather.
so people can get out.
Good
do it.
weather event.
You can do it in July.
And
It might not be
I'm
in
sure it's
snow,
going to come back. I think the snowbanks will be gone by July, so.
I think
No,
the
but,
best time we'll be gearing up for submission time.
yeah, and I think, so I'm in favor of this, and personally, Mr. Chairman, I'm prepared to make a motion to reduce the age eligibility from 68 to 66.
Move, second.
Second it.
Any discussion? And Jen, maybe you can, like I said, Sue Clark already knows about it. The next newsletter will probably go out in a couple of months. Maybe we're gonna have something in, maybe talk to Teresa if we can put something in, and maybe one of the tax bills. And we're also, Brian, Bill, we're also talking to Representative Fernandez about a couple of items. There's a clause 41D that the town would have to accept, but this is something where, that there's a cost of living where the increase you receive goes up by the cost of living every year, but we have to check out some more information to make sure that it's the right thing for the town. And like I said, this committee should be longstanding. Every year they should meet, and we are leadership, Jen. If there's anything that we can provide to augment participation and the number of people in making sure that people can stay in their homes, I think we should do that, you know?
Absolutely, be my
Okay.
pleasure. Yeah.
So unanimous on that, and we appreciate everything that you've done, and I think the town of Milford is in good hands. We had a great assessor, and now you'll be following in her footsteps.
Thank you so much.
Thank you and good luck.
Have a good night.
Okay. Harold?
Thank you, George.
Okay, next is Harold Rhodes. Harold's going to be talking to us. Harold's the chairman of the Commission on Disability, has been doing a very, very nice job since taking over from Mike Nicholson. And he's been working on, this is something that I think we talked about 6 or 8 years ago, a transportation project. And what Harold has tonight is an update for us, and maybe some of the steps he did. I scheduled a meeting for Harold to meet with Rick and our representative, and it was a good meeting. And so hopefully, you know, this is something maybe down the road, when the monies are, you know, clearly defined, and the number of ridership and all that, and the affordability. But Harold is here to talk about all the work that he's done. Harold, welcome.
Thank you very much. First, let me acknowledge the assistance by Rick throughout this whole process of guiding me on how best to move forward on every step of this process. Without his help, I'm sure couldn't have made as much progress. Each of you had a chance, I hope, to review the initial report. And as you can see, I concentrated on two aspects in this report of the demand side as well as the cost side. But speaking specifically to the demand side, you can see that I had a chance to speak in depth to a large number of people, and it was very good for me just to have a chance to talk to a lot of people. And what I did is I just chose 5 or 6 of those specifically, and I took their words, you know, from their statements to me, and put them directly into this report so as to express their specific thoughts. As I said, I'm sure you've read this, but, you know, beginning with the Milford Area Chamber of Commerce, strong support for doing this, recognizing that there are jobs in this community, there are folks who need jobs in this community, and bus transportation is well recognized as a method to, you know, make that happen. As well as Siobhan saying, you know, this is also a way to increase commerce, you know, by getting people to the various places of selling. To the hospital is deeply committed to bringing bus service. You know, we're all very much aware of the new ICU ER and the expected growth. But even today, we are all individually aware of those calls that come to the hospital, or even to ourselves, of folks that are in need of service to the hospital. Bill, let me just address one thing that I should have started off with. This is just for a fixed route bus system. This, as we talked once before, does not include, it excludes any sort of, I'll call it dial-a-ride, or direct, direct service that perhaps the senior center does. So this is just a strict strict bus route system, similar to all the other communities within the MWRTA. So in addition to speaking to the Chamber of Commerce, South Middlesex Opportunity Council, the hospital, the Housing Authority, the Veterans Agent, and the school system, I also took the opportunity to speak to each of the clergymen in Milford. And that was actually a wonderfully enjoyable activity. I had a chance to sit down with each of the 11 clergymen and just get their perspectives. And first of all, I had no trouble getting in to see them when I said that this is a discussion about transportation. And Reverend Goodwin and Reverend Scully from the two large churches, we would have spent more time if time hadn't prohibited them, speaking to the importance that their parishioners have spoken to them about the need for transportation. And that goes along with all the others as well. So,
And plus, Harold, you received all those blessings from those individuals. too,
well,
so-
I did pray with each one, or many of them, at the end of our discussions, that's for sure. So, as I just conclude this side, am I convinced that there is substantial demand? Yes, I am. Now, certainly, this is just a checkpoint meeting, and all I'm looking for now is, are there additional areas of research that you'd like me to go and investigate as we go forward? As Dino mentioned, this is not a this year project. This is a next year project, perhaps, as we begin to understand more in detail about the cost side. As I said, I'm very convinced that there's substantial demand for it. Now, the cost side is a complex, as I've learned, topic. There's history here, there's personal personal concerns here. There are a lot of things that are going on. But as I said to the MWRTA, I take a fresh look at this whole thing and putting everything behind us. The MWRTA expresses what I'll call a list price. And as I had a chance to go through more meetings with the MWRTA, I quickly realized that this list price is eminently negotiable, based upon, first of all, the specific nature of how Milford was not included in the, whatever that's described as that tax funding. I'm not even sure how to express it, how the funding is expressed for other communities. As well as their very great desire to bring Milford into the geographic community, as well as the expressed statements from the other delegates from the other towns that they very much want to be able to have their folks travel into Milford. Just to digress, you know that there's one bus that comes in at 6:30 in the morning. There's another bus that leaves at 4:30 in the afternoon. It averages just 3 or 4 riders each way. So yes, there is. No, it's not used. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. So where we are then is now a discussion that will be had with the MWRTA to really focus in on what is, an appropriate amount to, to be levied for bringing MWRTA to us. One thing I want to add to that is, and Kevin actually could speak to this a lot better, as part of the hospital's new building, they've had to contribute 2.5% of their building fund into, let's just call it a community benefits fund, but that's not the technical term. And their major concern, or their major expressed desire, is to use that money for access, and specifically for transportation access. So again, through a number of discussions, I'm very assured that the hospital or through this community fund will be willing to put in, Kevin, correct me, $50,000 or $60,000 in that neighborhood annually for the first 5 or 6 years, depending on, some other things. So that's a great thing to start with from the hospital side. And again, not approved. Again, this will all be worked out in great detail. We had a chance to, Rick and I visited with Representative Fernandez, and Representative Fernandez expressed his, support for bringing transportation to town, did express his concern about, the list price expressed by the MWRTA, but nonetheless said that he would take an active effort and having that number more carefully evaluated by the MWRTA. Rick, you have a better understanding of these things than I do. If there's anything you'd like to add into this, did I get it reasonably correct?
Did very well. Representative Fernandez has indicated that obviously he will use his expertise in assisting us in determining what the true number would be and the true services, and possibly also determining the real need too also. So he wanted to amplify on those 2 points, but he obviously is willing to work with us, and it was very cooperative. And I
Yes.
thought it was a very productive meeting with the three of us.
Yes, it came out of that like that. So that is the update. As I said, this is just a checkpoint. There's no action items being requested here at this time. I'm just interested if there's other areas of research that any of the selectmen would like me to go further on, while we, at the same time, work down the, a greater definition of the financial cost for the town.
Before we get to the board members, Harold, no, you've done a lot of research, and John is gonna be doing what he can to see if, as far as that number, and also some of the programs that might be available to
Yes.
to the town. When you met with the Chamber of Commerce, she's a new lady, and I think she's trying to do a good job. What about you mentioned the hospital maybe providing some funds, the town would have to provide some funds at some point. What about through the Chamber of Commerce, the companies, the corporations, would they provide some initial funding for this project?
I think this is the sort of thing that once we really focus in on a number, then I'll be in a better position to now go say, okay, this is the amount of money we need to put together. This is what the hospitals plan to do. What is the Chamber of Commerce willing to do through its members? And like I said, it needs to start with, here's my goal, and here's what the town is prepared to do. So yes, because they are going to be a major beneficiary. I mean, I think you all see if you look at the patch or just up and down the streets, you see cashiers needed or stockroom people needed. Well, a lot of jobs are going unfilled just because people just can't get there, and I'm confident that they'll support bringing that in. So to what degree, I don't know, but it's the sort of thing, once I have a number, then I can make a presentation to the Chamber of Commerce and, make them understand the importance of their participation.
And you've had a good conversation with Sue Clark, right?
Oh, very, very good. Now, as I said, what we did is, this is separate than the ongoing activity of what the senior center does. They're gonna continue to do their senior center activity of their transportation and their, providing to only those persons who are seniors or ADA certified, okay? So that's the only class of people that can use their bus system. This fixed route bus system then applies to the rest, okay? To everybody else who is in need of transportation in and around Milford. I should say that the actual bus route gets established by, the town of Milford. We can choose the route. We decide how it works. If we decide that it's not the most appropriate route, we can change it. So the bus would come down from Route 16, and today it just comes to the town hall or to Dunkin' Donuts and turns around and goes back. But as it enters into Milford, we would get to decide what route that bus would take and then return up Route 16 back to Framingham. So very conceivably, somebody could get on right in front of Town Hall and go to Mass General, right? Because you'd go to Framingham at their big, large transportation center and change buses and go to Mass General, which For the veterans agent, found that to be very helpful because they need to go be serviced by organizations that are certified to service veterans. And was very appealing, that they could get on one bus and go all the way down. So, as I said, the bus comes into Milford, it's completely, the route is completely under our control as to, its frequency and time. It would run from 6:30 in the morning to 7:30 PM, 5 days a week, that's 65 hours, and that compares with 35 hours that the senior center bus runs, just to give you an idea. So this gives people plenty of time to take an early morning bus to a job from 6:30 to 4 o'clock, or somebody who takes a bus at 8 o'clock to 6:30. So it covers that wide area, whether or not they live in Milford, go to a job outside of Milford, or come to Milford for a job. So altogether, I mean, I think it's just a very good program.
And like I said, it's all exploratory, there's more
Yes.
work to be done, and you've done a lot of the initial gathering, but there's a lot more that has to be done
Yes.
to make sure we have it right in the future if the town wants it. So we'll go to the board minutes now. Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Harold, let me thank you also for really picking up this ball and running with it. It's been laying dormant for a few years. I remember we did have discussions, and I don't know if it was 9 years ago or
Yeah,
quite a
8
few
years ago, yeah.
And, tried to bring this to fruition. So I was pleased to see that you took this up as a cause, and I'm very impressed with the work that you put forth. So thank you very much for that. Even without analyzing data or looking at trips, just instinctively, I know that there's a need for this in the town of Milford. You touched on it a little bit, but just kind of give me an outline. What type of transportation route would we be talking from out of the town? Would it go just to Framingham or
okay.
other locations? I'm just trying to get a sense.
So, the MWRTA route schedule, I can give you the whole packet, is extensive.
Okay,
So, and it provides a rider with many, many choices. So
Okay.
they could, for instance, take what's known as a 6A bus, which would go directly from Milford, straight up Route 16 to Framingham Transportation Center.
okay.
At that point, they could go on any bus to any other location. They could go up to Marlboro, they could go to take a bus almost anywhere.
So is Framingham more or less the hub?
That's the
that-
hub
that-
of
that-
the MWRTA.
okay. And then from there, the individual could go to a number of other locations?
They have a number of,
And-
there's,
Yeah, I was gonna say, and then from what you're telling me, intra-town, within Milford, we would have discretion in terms of whether we want them on Main Street or Purchase Street or whatever it would be.
complete
Okay.
discretion.
Okay.
We would decide, and after a month or two, if we didn't think that that was the most optimal, we have full discretion to change that bus schedule.
Okay,
So if we get feedback and saying we're missing over here, or we need to go over here, we can make that change. Once the bus comes into Milford, it's under our domain and control.
yeah, I mean, if for no other reason, the fact that the Milford Regional Medical Center is becoming such a large regional, and with the Dana-Farber component, such a large regional facility, treating so many people and being so important to so many people, if for no other reason, that to me, I think drives it. But, the other side of the coin, and you talked about that also, and I think that's where we're going to need to discuss more, because typically, the cost to these other towns were offset by assessments by the MBTA to the state budget. We don't have that in Milford.
Right.
So that's why this is, town money that's gonna go without any type of offset with the state. And, you're right, that number that's put out there is a list number. And what I learned on the last go-around, it really needs to be culled down to find out, I think, what the cost is going to be to this organization for this extra route and we've really got to narrow it down to reality. You know, if it's gonna cost you X, we're not gonna be paying X plus 10. You know, so I think that's really kind of the next step for me, you know, to see what steps we can take to come up with, I think, a realistic number as to what this service is gonna be. I think, you know, you get past that, from what you're telling me, all of these other things are gonna fall into place. You know, the route is out there, outside of Milford, within the town, we can certainly make those decisions. But it seems to me that the next step, I think, is gonna have to be to come to, you know, what a realistic bottom line number is.
Yes, that's exactly the next thing to be
Yeah,
done.
so that's kind of where I'm at on this. But I think you've done great work to get this thing going again, and I look forward to doing whatever I can to support it.
Well, I appreciate that, and let me just say that through our meeting with Representative Fernandez, it's great to have his support, because he certainly understands everything you just said very, very well. And I think he's taken it on personally as to make sure that Milford gets the appropriate
Absolutely, yes.
dollar and not 1 penny more.
Right.
I think he feels very comfortable with doing that, and I don't want to overspeak, because Rick, you were there too.
That is correct.
That's correct.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, and I
Good,
think he
thank you.
also serves on the Transportation Committee. so
Yes,
he knows his stuff.
he knows,
Yep.
yes.
Bill?
Yeah, my experience is if Representative Fernandez doesn't know, he'll find out pretty quick, so,
Yes,
and become an expert on it.
He may take advantage of the service, you know, knowing him.
I would hope so.
You know, I want to echo the comments made by others, and I appreciate, regardless of where this goes, it's important that we do investigate it, we do understand it. You know, I was here some 8, 9 years ago when this was first discussed, and the MWRTA, I've got to get the acronym correct, approached Milford because they were coming into Milford a lot, and Milford wasn't contributing to the service, but it had ridership. I think the greater benefit was that folks from Framingham had access to Milford, frankly. So I want to make sure I characterize what it is that we're talking about in terms of regional transportation. We're talking about, if I have it right, the hub being Framingham, and people being able to transport from Milford to Framingham, Framingham to here, and not only to Framingham, but then from Framingham to anywhere, right? Whether it be by rail or Logan Express or whatever, right?
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure I had that right. You know, when we first talked about this some 8 years ago, the assessment was $70,000. And so one of the pieces of information I'd like to understand is escalating cost.
Rick?
I'd like to understand what, if Milford were to participate in this, regardless of what the cost, what the actual and reasonable numbers have been in terms of escalation for other communities that have been on with the program the whole time. You know, right now, in our current environment, public transportation is not doing so well from a public relations standpoint. So I want to better understand the cost of infrastructure, the cost of escalation, and what people have seen. And I'm looking for a 9-10 year history. Because if we were first approached for $70,000 8 years ago, and now we're being approached for $250,000, I'm guessing that neither of those were negotiated. Those were the first pitch. Then what's happening with that cost? I worry that if we sign up for it, we're talking about a cost 8 years from now that's going to exceed $500,000. So if I extrapolate out,
If those numbers were real in the first place.
well, both of them not being real and
Yeah.
both of them being their first pitch, there's escalation.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And I'm guessing that communities have seen escalation, so what I'd like to be able to do is look at real costs. The other thing is, you know, one of the things that I noticed in again, it's important we get information, because the Milford Senior Center contracts with Valley Transportation, and it currently does not have the ability to accommodate powered wheelchair. Aside from that, I just personally appreciate you bringing me that piece of information, because what I'd like to do is, through the chairman, ask that the town administrator look into that with the senior center to see what we can do about that situation today. Because everything else aside, we ought to have powered wheelchair capability within that transportation. And if it's a budget number, I'd like to hear what that number is. I don't think it is. I don't think it's a number that has made people shy away. I just don't think people have investigated it deeper. And I'd like to investigate it deeper. So I appreciate, again, you bringing that information. But I remember the 70,000 number being one that this board balked at. And it seemed extravagant for the services being rendered at the time. And you can imagine what the $250,000 number does.
I just want to be sure that the number $250,000 is not represented publicly as.
The number.
any-
The final number, right.
As the number.
As
because
the
that
other
would be-
selectmen have said.
Right.
But I also, the one thing I want to caution everybody on, and I don't think the other board members are there, but there may be listeners doing this. This is not an Excel analysis. This is not a spreadsheet analysis. We're talking about the extent to which this community may or may not subsidize some public transportation. And from that public transportation, people that will receive benefit are those that need to go to cancer treatments. Are those that may need to go to a job to seek employment. And I don't know the specifics, Dean, and maybe you're a person to talk to, or maybe it's something we can explore. But, if somebody's not a senior and qualifies by virtue of age, and they're getting chemotherapy and need to simply get from one end of town to the Milford Hospital and the Dana-Farber Cancer Center. Or, as you said, and you highlighted here in what you wrote, there's overflow and they're oversubscribed at Dana-Farber and need to go into Boston for either the same care because they're going there and need to go there because they're oversubscribed, or just because specialized care. I'd like to understand that a little better and what exactly it means to be, is it ADA certified?
Yes. It's
I want to
called
use the right term.
ADA certified is the term, so it's over 65 or ADA certified.
So if somebody were 45 and receiving chemotherapy, could they in fact become certified? And what's that process?
ADA certification is the exact same certification to get handicap accessible plate, and there are five requirements for those, and they have to do with mobility mostly. So if that person is mobile, they wouldn't become ADA certified. Do you see what I mean? If they were able, for example, to walk.
I do, but it
to-
seems like an awful lot of people are able to get the placards.
Well, that has to do with the administration of those placards, which, as you know, is deeply concerning to me on a whole nother subject.
Right.
But,
And to others, by the way.
yeah, exactly. So, in order to qualify for the senior center, to become ADA certified, to be able to use their buses, they would have to prove to the senior center that they meet one of these criteria that are laid out
Okay.
to do that.
If they have a placard, would they, by virtue of that placard, automatically
Oh,
certify?
I've never asked Sue that question, but I'm sure the answer would be yes.
All right.
Yeah.
So it means they would have been screened through that process?
by that process
And by default
already.
would get
Right,
that?
by that
Okay,
process
so,
already.
so that's helpful to me because I want to be able to give people guidance that call me up.
Right.
Okay.
And then I think sometimes, no, most times, if someone has Medicaid though, and they're disabled, they can use Medicaid, will pay for certain transportations to hospitals.
Yeah, that's
That would be outside of.
That's a different program altogether, but I will be quite frank,
They have restrictions.
There's
on-
Medicaid and Mass Health.
there's Mass Health, but Medicaid itself has its own transportation program, but it's most generally recognized as being extremely poor,
Okay.
just not at all to the likings of the people that have to use it.
And the only, lastly, I just thought we'd explore potential difference between expansion of the senior center program and associated cost. Because I know people who are very, very happy with that program. and the differences in what this service would provide. Obviously, it wouldn't have the component of Milford to Framingham, Framingham to
Right.
Milford, but I'm talking about intra-Milford, because I'm wondering, can we provide superior services delivered by Milford residents to Milford residents at a better cost benefit?
And
And here I go back into, sounding like I'm going into an Excel spreadsheet, but I still want to provide and think about how to provide those services to people. It's just in a cost-effective manner, without getting into, we see the MBTA in the news for aged infrastructure and shutdowns and a whole lot of other things, without getting into larger regional transportation where we have less say. This is the point that this board was talking about earlier in terms of accountability. The buck stops here. Maybe there's opportunity there. So I'd like some analysis of that as well.
Well, let me just.
You asked for
provide
guidance.
A little bit. To that point, I did speak to the general managers of Busy Bee and Valley Transport and one other that just escaped me. And each indicated that none of them were equipped to provide the kinds of service equal to what the MWRTA could provide in terms of the quantity of transportation and the hours of transportation. You know,
Intra-Milford?
Intra-Milford, right. And that was, that was the first place I went, is to see, could Valley, who's doing it right now, just expand? And they declined.
Yeah, and frankly, I'm not, that goes out to bid, and frankly, I'll tell you that if we put a service out to bid, people will bid on it.
Okay, I'm just saying.
Transportation
they
companies will
demand-
bid on it.
Okay.
And whether they're capable of expanding existing service, or somebody else is interested in taking what would be exponentially more business, I think, there's opportunity. There's also opportunity maybe if Milford provides it.
There are other opportunities. The only other thing I want to add to both having other than MWRTA do this, and believe me, I'm not in favor necessarily of MWRTA because of their price. I'm just trying to say other things I've learned. The MWRTA actually manages all the call transportation that's, that's needed, So if somebody wanted to be sure that they were going to get a ride, they needed to check the bus routes and everything, there's a place for them to call. Under Busy Bee or Milford, we would have to have that person, pay for that person to provide that manifest.
And that would be borne out in the analysis
And
as
that
well.
would be borne out in the analysis.
Okay.
Okay. But I'll certainly look into additional transportation providers.
No, I wouldn't go out and explore. I'm confident that if we go out to bid with, maybe that's the only way to explore what the costing is. Okay, I'll leave it to you and your judgment.
Yeah, but Harold, as you heard, my colleagues are genuine with their passion on this, and I think if the right information is put together, the right package and all that, they'll definitely support something, either full-blown or in initial stages. Because I think we all feel that, hey, transportation is important. You have a lot of people don't have cars, going to work, going to medical appointments, augmenting what the senior center does, and hopefully Sue Clark can be a part of that. But this is something that, we started 8 years ago in planting a seed. Now you've taken it on in the past 2 or 3 months. We've had many discussions. You've talked to John, talked to Rick, talked to all those individuals that you have on that paper. And I'm sure that, maybe in 3 or 4 months, come on back to this board, give another report, and hopefully there'll be that factual information that we need to answer the questions that we've had.
Very,
Okay.
very good. I look forward to that. Let me just thank you, though, very much for appointing me chairman of the Milford Commission on Disability. I have thoroughly enjoyed, this role. I think we have an outstanding commission. We are doing wonderful work. I think you've seen a lot of the things that we've done. And I'm just very proud to be a part of it and proud to be the chairman of that commission. And, look forward to, being, a valuable part of, the Milford community for many years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Harold.
Harold.
Harold, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, this time we'll go to the town administrator's report. Rick?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just an update on the heater project. E&E Systems has finished replacing the 12 heating units on the first floor of Town Hall. There were no issues with this project, which was completed well ahead of schedule. Regarding budgets, all budgets under the jurisdiction of the Board of Selectmen are on target, with the exception, as Zach indicated in his presentation, the budget for police and fire injured on duty. We will most certainly need to consider supplementing this budget item, and we will likely need an article at town meeting. There was an update from Governor Baker regarding his 9 C cuts on February 3rd. He announced those 9 C cuts to close the state budget deficit through his emergency budget powers. Thankfully, his plan protects unrestricted municipal aid and Chapter 70 education aid. I want to echo the chairman's thoughts on snowstorms. I want to thank highway surveyor, police and fire chiefs, and also the senior custodian and their staffs for their hard work in dealing with the snowstorms of the past 2 weeks. They worked long hours in difficult conditions in clearing our streets, sidewalks, and schools, and their efforts are most appreciated. And as Zach also mentioned, MEMA, Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, has initiated the process to determine whether the Commonwealth and any of our counties may be eligible to receive federal disaster assistance under a presidential disaster declaration as a result of the January 26th through 28th, 2015 blizzard. MEMA is seeking to determine eligibility at this point to request federal emergency management agency public assistance funding, including snow assistance. As Zach also mentioned, the determination is a multi-step process. The initial step has been completed, which is to prepare and file the IDA, or initial damage assessment. The fire chief has filed this report, providing estimates of costs associated with snow removal, which include plowing, sanding, salting, de-icing, snow dumping, as well as labor costs, including overtime. And as Zach pointed out, the estimated cost that we will be submitting or have submitted is $167,478. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Brian, any questions for Rick?
No, no questions.
Bill?
No questions, thorough update.
Rick, can you just give us an update on the microphone system upstairs? What's happening with that?
Yes, the sound system you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes. Basically, I will, at the next meeting, be presenting to this board a proposal from AdTech to sign a contract to put in the new sound system. And I am told there would be no problem having it prepared and ready for the May, well, assuming you approve the May 18 town meeting. So,
All right, so you'll have the information.
yes, I
next
did
meeting?
look at
Okay.
some other companies as such too also, yes, I will, but that's my intention, yes.
Okay. Old business, want to take care of the capital project list that was updated?
Yes, I
believe?
did present to the board an updated capital, a 5-year plan, which included Town Hall, Senior Center, Police Station, and Animal Control. The goal is to determine what work is needed, what replacements are needed, what to buildings, those 4 buildings specifically. I am in the process of reformatting the plan. I would like to include additional information on the plan, such as the year a particular item was installed, for example, a roof or a boiler, and also determine on that capital plan the life expectancy. I think it just give us a better framework to work within to determine what projects we need to do and when. I do want to point out and stress that obviously each year we will review and make adjustments to the plan. I expect that there will be projects that will be on the plan for a particular year that may not need to go forward in that particular year. We do want to allow those projects that need to be addressed to proceed accordingly. At this point, I would ask the board just to review the plan. If they have questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. If you need additional information, I will go get it. But to just take this under advisement, obviously you heard Zach is going to be meeting, as I will, with the FinCom subcommittee, so that we can hopefully come back with a cohesive, unified plan as to how we would proceed in updating the capital plan, number 1, and placing articles on the warrant, number 2. That's basically what I would have to say concerning that.
Any questions on that?
Hit all the high points.
Well, go ahead, you go, yeah.
No, I was just saying he hit all the high points in terms of things that I'd be looking for. There are some new ads this year that I think rationale needs to be provided, and hopefully that'll be
And
part
that
of
is
that
gonna be
format.
part of what I update.
Yeah.
But for now, I wanted I had certain people, including the senior custodian, and also some of our vendors who deal with our heating systems and such, provide us information as to likelihood of things that may need to be done in the future. For example, the sprinkler system. We've had to make some minor repairs this year, so that is something I need to look further into, to develop a plan to see if and when and at what cost we will need to upgrade that.
Right, and that being a life safety system there's one of those cases where it may take priority over something else, that other item may slide independent of the other department's
Yeah.
great planning
Yeah.
and
I
whatnot,
was able to
just
do
by
the
priority.
repairs this year within budget, so,
As we said, we use logic.
Anything else, Bill, for Rick?
No,
no, I'm sorry.
Right, do you have something, Ryan?
Well, just, I mean, you know, given the, you know, the FinCom's recent tact, I mean, I think it's a good idea to add everything that's contemplated on the list, at least get it down, and then it can be organized, prioritized, whatever. The only thing that I would look to add at the senior center, and again, I don't even know if it's considered a capital expense, it might be more of maintenance, but it does seem that some of the trees are really growing close to the building, and I think that they may need to be pruned, or maybe even some of them might need to be taken down. And I spoke to the director about that, and she agrees, so we might want to just add a line item at some point. I don't consider it an emergency, it's nothing that's gonna be done today, but those trees, as they get bigger and they get close to the building, it's gonna have to be
Damage.
managed.
And I think specifically to that point, that's exactly, the tree warden manages town-owned trees and town responsibility. There's already an existing budget. If known issues like that put pressure on that budget, it would then be the tree warden's responsibility to go
Absolutely.
advocate
I don't
for greater
disagree with
budget.
that at all.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Rick,
I mean, that's his job responsibility,
right.
right?
Talk to him,
Yeah.
you know, now about
Absolutely,
it.
yeah.
We don't want to undercut him or undermine him either.
No.
But you know, as I looked at these, it's just something that came to mind that, you know, I think needs to be done. Other than that, it's comprehensive and it's on paper, so now we can shift and shuffle and whatever needs to be done.
Yeah, no, that's good point. And while we're talking about trees, Rick, I don't see why that person couldn't take care of the trees on Main Street either. As far as pruning, a lot of times we've had those trees.
Public
they're
way.
They're going through buildings and all that, you know, so.
Agreed.
We should have a plan on that, too.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about, maybe that's part of a different plan, to your point, Tino, a proactive approach, looking at our municipal
Yeah.
trees and those that pose risk. I know that the school department went through a great deal after some horrific near misses that they had to go back and prune. I know that the federal highway, everybody is, survivability on the highway, cutting back on trees, and encroaching the highway. So it would be good to hear that plan from the tree warden.
Sure. I'll
So
reach
you're
out to
talking
him on
about
that also.
accountability, I mean, if we bring it up and we see it, you know, what are these
Yeah,
people doing?
exactly.
Right.
Okay.
That's a great point, Tino.
Rick, want to take the next one, the IT personnel?
Yes, the board knows we hired a tech support technician in August of last year. We did post for the position. We got 44 applicants for the position. We did choose a gentleman who's now serving very well in that position. I am now recommending the town hire a second technology support technician. We had ranked a number of people as part of that interview process. The second ranked interview, and it was very close between our current gentleman and Andrew Diorio. I am going to recommend Andrew for this second tech position. He has served as a consulting technical support specialist and a help desk technician for Framingham State College. He's been a network technician for the town of Canton, as well as a technical support engineer for EMC. He has a Bachelor of Science in Business and Information Technology from Framingham State University, as well as an associate degree in Business Technology from Dean College. He has provided help desk support for in excess of 750 users and played a lead role for the pilot and rollout of the Office 2007 at Framingham State. I believe his experience in the field and the school setting will be most beneficial to the town of Milford. I would therefore respectfully recommend that Mr. Andrew Diorio be appointed to the Technology Support Technician position. If you were to approve of this recommendation, I would also request that he be placed at grade 6, step 4, with a starting hourly rate of salary of $26.21. And I would also request that he be permitted to begin working on March 2nd, 2015.
Any questions or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Motion by Brian,
I'll second for discussion.
Bill?
Rick, where does the 50, well, let me say it this way, where does the 21 annual number come from? Because my question is really born from, what's the baseline, what's the comparison, how are people outside,
Well,
being
the
paid
reason
for that role?
the reason I'm asking to start him at that salary rather than the initial step is I believe the comparison is that we need to pay our technicians a proper salary. And so instead of starting him at step one, I'm gonna ask, obviously subject to your approval and then Personnel Board, to approve him at step 4. And it's based upon comparisons that I've looked at in other
Okay.
communities, so.
And with that
Franklin
said-
being one of them.
With that said,
Yeah.
are we creating any issues of salary compression with peers or management within that organization?
We should not be
Okay.
on that, correct.
All right, inequity or,
I'm going to hopefully, as I speak to the next piece of this puzzle, that will clear that up, yeah.
okay. My only suggestion is, if you need any help and support when you go to personnel, when is that meeting?
Actually, I'm going to meet with them Tuesday night.
All right, so I'm not going to be available, as you know.
I know that, but.
I'd ask that a board member be present because I think we need to be strong in our funding and supporting the positions and recommendations that we make. And I think a board member being present would,
I'm also going to bring the IT director with me.
We'll make sure
Okay,
someone's there.
well,
Yeah.
Either Dean or myself will
Yeah.
be there.
I would try to be there,
Okay.
just to have a
Yep,
engagement.
okay, anything
Appreciate it,
else?
Sure, that's fine.
If
No.
not, all in favor,
Do we vote?
opposed?
Okay, I'm
So
sorry.
that's unanimous. And then, Rick, the next one you want to create a network
Yeah,
administrator?
The next one is a recommendation to establish the position of what we call a network administrator. He would work under the direction of the IT director. I've spoken with the ID director, our IT consultant also, and we believe that this is an important next step in building the personnel in the department. This person is responsible for installation, operation, and management of the town network. Includes installing, maintaining, troubleshooting, upgrading both server hardware and software. He's also responsible for maintaining the security, safety, and efficient operation of the network operating environment and its related component as it relates to the LAN and WAN and wireless environment. He also recommends necessary enhancements. So basically now what we would have is an IT director. Below him would be this person, and below him would be the technicians. So it's kind of a model I've seen from other towns. And if you were to approve of this recommendation, again, I will be going to the Personnel Board on Tuesday to obviously request the establishment of this new position and the rating of this new position under Article 2 salaried positions. I also attached, I believe, a copy of a proposed job description for this individual.
Any questions, comments, or anything?
No, I'll be glad to make the motion to approve.
Okay, motion by Brian.
I'll second for
Seconded.
discussion.
Discussion?
Um,
Yeah, discussion.
Rick, my concern is that when we go to the Personnel Board, we go there with a very specific request. I'm concerned about doing, in effect, throwing up a jump ball.
As to salary?
Yes.
Absolutely. I will be going there with a specific request.
Then my problem that spins out of that is I'd be recommending a position for which I don't know the salary, and I don't know its funding source. So I want to be mindful
I
of,
see the salary as either going in,
what's your recommendation to planning? I mean, to personnel?
my recommendation will be grade 2, step 4, which would put this individual, step 3, which would put this individual at almost $60,000. And that's just the midpoint. The range would run from about 52,000 all the way up to about 66,000. I have looked at other towns, for example,
Comparable
in
positions.
the area. They average in the neighborhood of about 60,000. again, I looked to Franklin for some of this, and
Yeah.
so that's the area where I think this falls. I almost, and I'll be honest with you, I may consider, Bill, maybe even requesting maybe up a grade, grade 3, step 1, which would put it in the $60,000 to $74,000 range. That's where I'm.
Still capable of being hired at 60.
Absolutely.
I guess what I'm looking for is to understand the ask of this board is part of my question.
Yep,
So we're being asked to add a position.
that's the first step, correct.
We don't know what we're approving in its salary, and if the number is $60,000, I want to be unambiguous about that so that when we go to the planning board, this board is approving $60,000 and we're asking the personnel board to also approve $60,000.
I intend to be very strong with them. I've had
Well,
some.
I guess we're waiting, I want to amend the motion to just.
Sure.
So that, and then the second piece of it is, I'd like to understand the funding source for this year. We're in the middle of a budget
Actually,
cycle.
Yep, no, actually, we can fund it.
Okay,
It's
so
not gonna be a problem to.
Coming out of existing personnel?
It's gonna
fund?
be no additional funding. I am looking to maybe move someone internally, I'll be honest with you there, so that the existing technician, if he were to apply, would be considered for this position. So in essence, I'm
As a
adding.
preferred candidate.
Exactly, I'm
Gotcha.
adding him, so I'm just adding this position, because we already have a tech in
So,
position.
but you're not going to backfill the other position when you have a
No, not at this
network?
point, no.
Okay, so,
I've had preliminary discussions with the subcommittee at FinCom, and I believe they will be on board with this also.
okay, then let me ask it a different way.
Sure.
What happens if the person doesn't get the position, doesn't apply, or decides at the last minute? Are you keeping the technician position and adding a network administrator?
I still probably would, well, at this point, I probably would establish the position and then make that determination. Because I'd have to then have a whole different budget discussion
Well, exactly, that's what I'm looking for, a
with
budget
the
discussion for
personnel,
next year.
with Personnel Board, FinCom, et cetera.
Okay, so I'd just like to amend the motion
Sure.
to support the network administrator position as outlined by the job description provided by town administrator, and to further support a $60,000 starting salary for that position.
Excellent.
60,000 even, or is it more or less? I don't know what your idea
Why
is.
don't you give me the range, and if it's a different number?
The range would be,
I thought I heard 60, so.
well, I want to, it's actually about 59,000.
All right, so
I did round up.
let's go with $60,000.
So approximately.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
All right, all right, so,
I think, well, I mean, we've
okay,
had
all-
this discussion.
all in favor, that's unanimous, right?
Sorry.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sorry, thank you.
Brian, anything for Rick, old business?
Mr. Chairman, I think I need to address the article. It was in the Milford Daily News today, and typically I wouldn't do it, but we have a meeting tonight just by chance, and it regards the youth center renovation. And apparently last night at the Finance Committee, there was an update given by the member of the committee, Will Kincaid, who also serves on the Finance Committee. And I wasn't there because we had a Armory renovation meeting. But there's just some discrepancies in the article that I just want to make public so people can know, where we're at with things. The headline itself is misleading. Youth centers renovation costs grow. The costs aren't growing at all. The project is well within the budget. It does cite a $120,000 change order, which is attributed to rotten floorboards. Actually, the change order that's referenced is a combination of probably about 5 or 6 items, the largest of which is severe structural damage that was found primarily in the roof area, but also along the walls. The flooring aspect was just the removal of a first layer of underlaying floor in the first floor. It also says that our contingency budget is $300,000, and that's not accurate. The contingency budget that we have is $425,000. And, the things that we're finding are well within the contingency budget, and we think are gonna be well within through the finish of the project. It does say that the project is moving along on schedule. In fact, because of the extent of structural damage we found, we believe the schedule is gonna be about a month delayed, and we've notified Sydney on that and the youth center. And the last item and again, I wasn't there, I don't know the discussion of the reporting, but just in terms of clarifying information, it talks about solar energy panels. I just want to make it clear that that was not part of the original project. It was not spec'd by the engineer, it was not bid. The contractor, certainly didn't give us any price on it, and it is not anything that is being contemplated in the existing project. So I just wanted to get that clarified so the public can know exactly, what's going on, where we're at with that.
Okay, thank you. Bill,
Thank you.
anything on the,
No, I'd like to comment on that as well. It's funny that you mention it, Brian, because I have to say, picking up the paper, I was amazed at the disparity between what was reported in the meeting by the individual members and how it was reported in the newspaper, and I'm glad you brought it up. There is a large gap, and I think you'd appreciate the gap between what was said and what was reported when you get a chance to see it. I think you'd appreciate it because the way you reported it was much closer, in my view, to what was reported. I think there's difficulty sometimes in the newspaper or reporters digesting all the various information, but it was reported it was within the contingency. And I think it was reported that the balance of the contingency was somewhere around 300,000 as a general number. And whether that's accurate or not, it sounds closer to the story that, the facts that you've provided. I would encourage you to go look at it. I was disappointed at the reporting as well.
Yeah, the article, just the headline itself.
Yeah,
I mean,
well-
it's just not, it was just not accurately reported. So that's where we're at on things.
Thank
okay.
you.
Bill, do you have anything on the old business?
No, well, just associated with the IT, I wanted to ask the question because I promised to continue to ask it. What I wanted to ask is if, with regard to the network, and as we talked about the weaknesses in the system, specifically in the school department, what I wanted to understand is, per the director of IT's request for, I think, somewhere in the neighborhood of $32,000 to $38,000 in network hardware, is any network hardware, router servers or other miscellaneous hardware been ordered as requested by the IT director?
No, at the last school committee meeting, I believe they determined they would do the mapping first and then make that determination. The mapping has started. It started last week.
Okay.
That's as far as my latest understanding.
I think we're going to come to a point, and again, I'll keep asking until the IT director starts getting the ability to order hardware. But I think what we're going to be looking at is making requests to consolidate budget line items. So, and I'm not necessarily talking about new budget, new dollars, but consolidating existing budgets, because we're just simply, the IT director is simply not going to be able to provide the services if the hardware that's been neglected for years, and we've seen that in the World Band report, isn't placed on order. I keep asking the question because I'm concerned about the threat. I'm concerned about supporting the IT director. I don't want to see another IT director fail because we've set them up to fail. So, maybe, Rick, if there's any guidance between you and the finance director regarding how we consolidate budgets for next year so that we do something fundamentally different than we're doing now, that would be very helpful, because we've got to empower an IT director. And this seems almost whimsical how we approach when an IT director talks about priorities, and at a very minimum, we're talking $30-some thousand for some servers, because we're talking about some that have been there since the blizzard of '78. So I don't know why we're hesitating.
Rick, we had a goal when we all talked about this, is to have you and the superintendent work and do things collectively to help town government and the school system. At what point do we look at that again and say, well, can that still be a viable goal with the monies that are involved? And, might it be better to, at some point say, well, schools department, they handle their own computers or whatever the case may be, and we take care of what we have. If that's cost effective, or if that's gonna be done in an easier way, because it just seems that, it's just too big for for you and Bob and the responsibilities. You have a school committee, you have this board and all that. You have a FinCom, and I heard Mike this morning on the radio say that we may need $600,000 or $700,000 in order to do it. All the goals and all that. I mean, if that's the case, we don't have the money, it's not gonna be done. So, you know, going forward, hopefully, you'll continue to address this board to give your recommendations on, you know, if something still can be done collectively and working together. But at some point, if it doesn't work for whatever reason, then maybe I think each entity should take care of their own situation. I don't know how you feel about that, Rick.
I think the rubber will hit the road, Rick.
I think we're at the
When we
point now,
consolidate budget.
when budget season is completed, we've had some preliminary discussions about how we're going to budget for this and where that money is going to be placed. Zach has been intimately involved in those discussions with Kathy Perry and also, obviously, Superintendent Tremblay. So I would venture that once we determine how we're going to budget this, then I think, and the mapping's completed, that's gonna define for us what work needs to be done
When's
specifically
that
at the
gonna be done?
schools. The mapping should be done within 3 to 4 weeks.
And then,
Very soon.
and then we'll have what kind of report?
Then we're going to have a very detailed report as to the high school and the other schools as to exactly where every closet is, every network switch is. Right now, we're having issues up there because we're not sure where things are, and it is causing us issues. So, when that's done, it also hopefully,
cloud.
as I understand it, will tell us what we need, you know, and getting to Bill's point, I would expect then some expenditures are gonna be made.
So that's being done on that, but what's being, as far as we're concerned, as far as the town government side, where are we in this whole process?
The town government side here, as far as this building and the senior center, which were the two buildings we're primarily dealing with, this building is in very, well, I don't want to say very good shape, but is in much better shape than the school system, comparatively speaking. Now, remember, we had the appropriation and we purchased two new servers. We have computers here now that we purchased for everybody who needed them in this building. We have the software that everybody is using, you know, as far as Office and backup and McAfee and those types of systems. So here, I think we still have some things I would like to do.
Sure.
Here, but this building itself, you know, is, I think, is much improved in the last year and a half.
You know, and the one thing I want to caution everybody on, and I'm not an IT specialist, and I don't want to pretend to be one. The vulnerability of a network can come from anywhere, right? So it's simply a chain, and it's its weakest link. So if access is not controlled and not authenticated, private information and personal information can go out, whether it's access via the school or access via the town hall. So it's only as strong as its weakest link. If that interconnection between the school department and central office, not central office, but town hall is not maintained, whether it's their side or our side that fails, it still fails and people don't get paid. So critical infrastructure, vital services are not rendered. And at the end of the day, we'll be trying to explain why the MBTA rail line, third rails froze, and whose responsibility it is. The fact is, it's the town's network. And do you know, Brian, you've raised the questions and the appropriate questions. I don't know what's stalling it. We're not talking about significant sums of money. I'm frustrated beyond belief. I'm trying to manage it. Because,
Is it 700,000, 600,000, or not? We don't know.
well, I think that's, to be honest with you, I think that's a starting point, and I think we're gonna have to phase this in over a number of years. But the request the ask by this board was, what was making our IT department a revolving door? How did it need to be consolidated? What advice was recommended? I think the IT director has gone out and gotten that information. Now, the inability to execute based on, he's not funded, is a significant deterrent to progress. He's an IT director that's capable of buying rubber bands and pencils right now, and doesn't have the full support of existing IT infrastructure budgets. We've got to consolidate that. I did hear, to Mark's credit, him furthering that. I would support that, by the way. consolidated budget under IT. And it's not all new ask, because there are departments out there that are of the belief that they're gonna gain the support of a network director and a network team. And it will all be new line items against an appropriation. And that existing IT dollars aren't gonna be touched within their budget. I don't know that that's reasonable. In my opinion, it's not, because some of those dollars are shared dollars.
Yeah, I mean, you know, as this thing evolves and progresses, I think back to, when we first started this, and Lou Salazzi and Bob Tremblay got together and they hired the director and it was gonna be shared and, given.
Co-funded.
Yes,
Was
yes,
co-funded,
percentage-wise.
64.
And given where we're at right now and the role that technology plays, I mean, that concept seems almost quaint. And, maybe it's time to really scrap that model, have a solid IT department for the entire town of Milford, including the schools, and whatever gets attributable to the school comes off their budget as an indirect cost.
Right, it's
Similar to
journal entry, vouchered back, and,
similarly what we do to the highway department.
right, and they'll be able
I
to
mean, you don't know when we
demonstrate to
did the
the,
budgets, I don't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, it's
but,
the accounting
you go
functions
through
they
the
gave us.
budgets
It's an
and then your
accounting
indirect
function.
cost to the town for your legal department, your, highway. you
Trash
know,
removal,
all of-
snow removal.
Exactly, so, right now, this model is stalling, it seems cumbersome, and, I think it's time to, think of something different, more along the lines with other departments.
well, let's see where we go in this budget cycle.
To me, that's gonna be the next significant step here.
Yeah, because I watched the school committee meeting last week, and, the comments made by Joe Marias and even Donnie Quattrochio, I mean, it just, they have a lot of questions, and I don't know if it can be done in this particular way. So, Rick, at some point, you're gonna have to tell the board, listen, we should continue to go straight, follow the model, or do something else.
Right.
And follow something else that makes sense.
Okay.
Because eventually, if you need money, then we get the money. If the money's an issue, then that's another issue, situation.
Right.
Okay.
I didn't mean to open up that can, but I.
No, it's something that.
We're gonna keep it on the
should be
burner. I
right.
wanna- Okay.
I mean, yeah, it's complex, but, I mean, is it just money, or do we need a lot of other pieces as well? I don't know. And as far as the, school system, the kids are being affected, and you don't want this thing to take 2 or 3 years before it gets, fully implemented. Okay, new business, I believe. Rick, the
Yeah.
custodian, part-time custodian?
Position of a part-time, which is 19 hours, junior building custodian to work specifically at the police station, was advertised in the Daily News, posted on the website. We received 11 applications. They were narrowed to 3, interviewed by myself, senior custodian Carlos Benjamin, and police chief Thomas O'Laughlin. After the interviews, I am recommending Jose Cosquet for the position. I believe he has the necessary experience and skill set for the position. His prior work included all the duties that he'd be doing while doing this. The tasks would include cleaning, sweeping, cleaning machinery, cleaning floors, changing light bulbs, shoveling snow, operation of machinery, equipment, etc. I would recommend that Mr. Jose Cosquet be appointed to the junior building custodian position. If you approve of the recommendation, I request that he be placed at grade 2, step 1, with a starting hourly salary of $17.22. And I would request that he begin work starting on Tuesday, whatever that date is, February 17th.
Is there a motion by
Second.
Brian, seconded by Bill. Any discussion?
Thanks.
If not, all in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
On the annual town meeting, we just have to change the date to
Yeah, I think
February 12th, right?
Yeah, we would open the warrant today. We'd still close it on, where are we? March 5th. We're trying to give everybody ample time to review the articles that would be placed on the warrant.
I'll move.
Motion.
I'll
by,
second.
Brian, seconded by Bill. Any discussion? All in favor?
Oops.
Unanimous. On the, Ed Roth, who does a great job for us at the senior center, is recommending, there's an opening on the Council of Aging, and As we all know, Chief O'Loughlin is always there, helps out in any way possible, whether it be calling out the bingo numbers or assisting in all kinds of affairs that benefit the seniors. And the chief would like to be appointed to that, and what's the pleasure of the board?
Hey, if he can handle
Yeah.
calling out the bingo numbers.
We
he's
may
got-
wanna-
He's got my vote.
We may want to specifically preclude that from his duties, because
Oh, no,
I've
no,
heard
I
some
think he-
feedback.
I think he does it, so.
All right, motion by
That's
Brian,
very
second by
good.
Bill, and good luck to him. That's unanimous. On Whitewood Road, we have to remove the sign, right, Rick?
Yes, he
It's that
recommended.
85 percentile.
Yeah, remove the 30-mile-per-hour speed zone.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Bill, that's unanimous. The next one, we've asked the DOT for a recommendation of a 30-mile-hour speed limit, right?
Yes.
Okay, motion by Brian, seconded by Bill, and probably in a
We're
couple of
saving
months,
these,
we'll
we
be taking
take
it
down.
down.
Taking that down.
Okay. Rick, I think you already addressed the.
We already had a
budget.
motion
Okay.
on,
Yeah, we did that.
Mr. Romano's written, and he's also gotten the okay from the fire chief and police chief that it's a good idea to have no parking on one side of Cena Hella Way. Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and that's unanimous. Alianca Cultural Portuguesa, one-day license for February 21st. Motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded, any discussion, all in favor? A nice donation of $100 to, from the Birch Hill to the general gift.
Motion.
The fire department, motion, seconded. And we have a new one tonight. This is Mary Jo Bentley to be a crossing guard. Just came in tonight, Rick?
yes, I'll move.
Motion by Rick,
Yes.
seconded by Bill.
Yes.
Any discussion? And that's unanimous. Rick, can you just quickly handle National Grid and the
just,
zoning bylaw in relation to signs?
Yes, why don't we do that one first, if we could?
Okay.
Basically, town council has recommended a minor amendment to the zoning bylaw, article sign regulations. The article is before you. He has asked, we are asking the board to vote to remand this to the planning board for hearing.
I'll move.
Move, is there a second? I'll second it for discussion. Bill?
Yeah, I'm supportive of let me say this. I'm supportive of any means possible to be able to allow the nonprofits and the people that have been historically over the years putting up signs on Tank Field to somehow find a means and way to do that.
Okay, motion, seconded,
It's incredible to me that it's gotten to this point, but
that's unanimous. In National Grid, Rick,
Yes.
that's the recent letter,
Yeah, basically, two things just to take from that letter. One is, I guess the utility companies got together and they voted to use a new double pole reporting system. And basically, National Grid is in the process of upgrading their current system to be used with this new software. It won't affect any field work at the present time. I just won't have a report for you probably till the next meeting. The other thing to take from the letter is that Verizon has completed finally that talked about comprehensive street-by-street pole survey. It includes now pole details of every pole in Milford, including the double poles. So hopefully this, they're telling me, will expedite the transfers and the pole removals. I spoke with Bob Russell today and yesterday. Perhaps when the new system and the new report comes up, he has said that he'd be willing to come in to the board, speak with you, he hasn't been in for quite some time, to update you both on why the new system, number one, and the benefit to the street-by-street survey completed by Verizon, so.
Right.
So if the board's willing, I would get him in, if not the next meeting, the meeting after.
Sure, excellent.
okay, we have an update from Bonnie on all the activities that she has been performing for us. We have a report from the Personnel Board that I guess they'll be submitting to the annual town meeting. And unless I have anything else that you want to bring up, we do have three agenda items for executive session with town council regarding the water company, his personal contract, something that has to be changed, and also town council Moody regarding police department collective bargaining. Is there a motion for?
I'll move.
Second?
Motion by Ryan, second by Bill. Roll call vote. All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we will not be coming back into open session. Good night.